So today, what we're going to talk about in regard to relaunching your career is, some of the steps that you should take and some of the things that you're going to want to do, which include things like self-reflection, setting goals, making sure that you have a networking plan. There are other job search tasks that we want to cover. And of course, it might be a little bit of a challenge to go back into the workforce. We know that, and we want to make sure that we set you up for success in that. So we'll talk about how to overcome those challenges. And as I mentioned, we will do an audience Q&A. All right. So the first thing that you want to do really is think about your career break and really just acknowledge the break. During the course of somebody's career, um, there are several reasons. One may go through a period of not working, and it is pretty common. Of course, someone could be laid off or fired, so that is not necessarily the person's choice, but some other reasons could be more personal, like the birth of a child or even a caregiving requirement for an aging parent. So, whatever the reason may be, it really is a natural part of somebody's career experience. And since the pandemic, so for about 3 years, more and more workers have had career breaks. During the early days of COVID-19, many people were laid off or furloughed. And so, to a degree, a career break is not really a surprise to hiring managers anymore. So, later in the presentation, we'll talk about how you can communicate your break on your resume, with your cover letter, and of course, in an interview. As I mentioned, part of the process, or one of the things we're going to talk about today, is self reflection. And really, part of the process of returning to work will involve a lot of self reflection and time spent doing so. So, you do not want to skip this part. You will, of course, want to take some time to figure out what it is you really want to do when you go back to work. This also includes things like the level of work, meaning full time or part time or maybe contract, and then what type of work you want to do. Do you want to do remote work? Do you want to do hybrid work? Or do you want to work in office? So, start first here by taking a look at your old resume to refresh your memory on your career accomplishments and experiences. Note what you really enjoyed about your previous job or jobs, and also things that you didn't exactly like or weren't as engaging for you. So you can really envision yourself going into this role or to a similar one, into a similar one again, and think about what kind of feelings does that manifest for you? Does it feel like it would still be a good fit? If not, what pieces of what you did before do you hope will be a part of your next role or this job that you are going to relaunch your career with? Write out a solid list of your skills and your strengths, and think too about what do you want or what do you value from work or working. This is an important question to ask yourself as well. And actually, there are some sub questions in terms of your values that I think are important to talk about. So, for some people, what people value about work is they value the monetary benefits, right? I think most of us probably do. Some people value a position that allows them to keep their own basic life values. Some people view work and want work to be something that allows them to pursue their passions for a greater good. Maybe that's through a nonprofit. Maybe it's an organization that really works for social change or charity endeavors. That can be something that someone is interested in as well. Work for some people is simply somewhere that they find some fulfillment, but not all of it. Some people don't need to find a ton of fulfillment from work. It could be a place where you work on your competencies and learn new skills. It could be work and tasks that give you personal satisfaction and make you feel proud of yourself and the work that you're doing. Work could be the value of something that fits into whatever phase of life you are currently navigating. Maybe you're a new college grad, maybe you're a new parent going back to work, or maybe you've taken some time off and you're later in your career. These things can change over time, but I think it's really important to know your values so that you can make informed decisions as you are making this change. Um, Another consideration after you kind of go through that self-reflection process is really to think about what your timeline for returning to work is. If it's been a while since you've searched for jobs, it's important that you allow yourself to get sort of a lay of the land on how the job search process works now, how to tailor your resume, for example, and your cover letter for each job. That might be different than what you did before. Also, it's important to adequately manage your expectations for how long a job search will take or can take. And the most recent data from the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics says that or found that finding a job takes just over 19 weeks or almost 5 months. So, a 3 to 6 month job search is reasonable to expect. And think about coming off of a career break. That may take a little bit longer than that average, depending on your circumstances, your industry, and your previous experience. Also, if you do want to return to your old career and what you were doing before, you might need to do some research on skills required to do the role now. Will you need to renew or get any new certifications? Are there other upskilling or skill building opportunities available that would make you a more competitive candidate? A returnship might be an option for you as well. So you might just think about, who do you know that still works in the space? Do you have any network connections in your previous industry or with companies that you have worked for before? So, this self-reflection is really note-taking. It's really sitting with the information that you have to sort of help you determine what you might want to do going forward. And so once you've spent some time figuring out what you want to go back to or the new path that you want to pursue, you want to set some goals to land the job. So this is really going to be different for each individual. So this is a pretty general structure. And there are a few things that everyone should consider and put some thought into. So first, if you are going through a career change or pivot, and need to upskill or get certified in something, this should be something that you would prioritize first. So you want to put a plan in place to identify programs, webinars, events, courses that you can participate in to get your skills in order and then pursue those. In addition, another piece of the job search, of course, entails looking at job descriptions. But this point, you are going to look at job descriptions and analyze what you are seeing. What are the key technical skills required for the roles you are looking for? What are some of the key skills and experience levels that most of the jobs are looking for? And take note of those. It's important to understand the industry you are returning to or joining so that you can make sure you can do the next step, which is updating your job documents like your resume and your digital profiles like LinkedIn, of course, your cover letter, and updating these to position yourself as a person who is capable and ready to do the job. Recently, I was listening to a podcast called The Huberman Lab. I wonder if anybody out there listens to him. He's pretty popular, I think, in the podcasting world. He has so many great episodes. I love listening to them. I learn so much every time. But in this particular episode was on goal setting. And I listened to it, selfishly for myself, but also in preparation for this interview. But he shared some things that were pretty eye-opening. The most eye-opening thing he said, I wanted to share with you, because oftentimes we hear, and I've said this to job seekers before myself, you want to know your why, and you want to really note and write out your goal and put it, maybe on a sticky note somewhere. Write out your goal, put a sticky note somewhere, whether it's on your bathroom mirror, your refrigerator, wherever it is, so you see it every day as a way to recommit to that goal. And actually, what he said was that doing that doesn't actually work the way that we think it does, because our mind and our body get used to seeing the same thing in the same spot day after day, and then it loses its value a bit. And of course, I'm paraphrasing, but it's not as impactful when it's in the same spot every day because it becomes part of the routine that we go through if everything stays the same. So, what he said works much better is to achieve a goal, you want to write that goal down every day, write it down every day, and put it somewhere different so your visual and physical cues are different. So, instead of putting it on your bathroom mirror every day, one day put it there, one day put it in your car, one day put it on your computer, and so on. So, if your goal is to change careers, if it's to get a job in 6 months, or whatever your ultimate goal is that you're going to set, you want to take a few seconds to record that or write it each day and place it somewhere different so that you can keep it top of mind, and the motivation and discipline that you need to achieve it will not wane as much if you had that piece of paper in the same place every day. And to me, that was a really big aha moment, but it certainly does make a lot of sense. All right. And for each step in your goals or your action plan, each step in the process, you want to work backwards from your long-term goal. So if your goal is to make or to get a job in 6 months, you want to work backwards and create monthly goals. From there, you want to create weekly goals, and then you want to create daily goals. And so maybe what you do is you set your big monthly goals, and then from there you do your weekly goals a week at a time. And then when the week starts, then you might set your daily goals, or however the process works for you. But this is a general framework. It's really a good system to ensure that you are doing what you need to do to re-enter the workforce. All right. So if upskilling is one of your action items, you will want to have smaller goals or steps in place to execute the upskilling portion of your action plan. It's like a subset. If you aren't sure if you need to do upskilling and job postings aren't giving you the clarity you need, you could try some prompts into a tool such as ChatGPT. Maybe you can ask something like, what are some key skills needed to be a competitive candidate for a job in project management? So on the left part of the slide, you can see that I did that. And I wanted to just share some of the skills and information that popped up when I asked that question. Things like leadership, communication, organizational skills. It even says tools like project management software can assist in this regard. So that would, if this were me, I would say what project management software might be required to be a competitive candidate as a project manager. And so then you will find more information that is specific to that role. Also, you could ask something like, I am returning to work after a 5-year break. I want to pursue a job in writing. What are some key skills I need on my resume to be a competitive applicant? So I put this on the right-hand side of the slide. And of course, it mentions things like writing skills, editing, proofreading, researching, adaptability, digital skills, such as content management systems, SEO knowledge, and social media expertise. As well as storytelling. So ChatGPT can be a good way for you to also confirm or continue your research on whether or not upskilling is a good idea. We also at FlexJobs have an upskilling webinar that you can listen to or attend that gives you more concrete planning activities for this specific topic. All right, so now let's talk about the tasks of a job search. I'll ask you this. Feel free to put it in the chat if you like. I think I'll know most people's answer, but I'm curious if any of you have ever gotten a job through somebody that you know. Feel free to add that in the chat. I'll give you a second if you want to add something. All right, so as I suspected, the saying, it's not what you know, but who you know definitely still applies in the job search. So I am one of those people that have found multiple jobs through people that I have known before, or who I've worked with and left and have asked me to come back. So you will definitely want to plan and execute some networking activities as you prepare to return to work. If you have a LinkedIn profile already, you definitely will need to spend some time updating it with your latest information and skills. You want to pay careful attention to your LinkedIn headline, the About section, and your skills section. Those three areas you want to focus on first, and each of those sections should be keyword and key skill rich. Then look for things like professional associations and groups, both on LinkedIn and elsewhere, that you can join and participate in to grow your network. Let people in your network already know your plans to return to work and what you want to do. You can set up informational interviews, attend company and industry webinars and events when and if able. So the networking plan is going to look a little different for everybody, but it is a crucial part of the process. All right. Also, I mentioned job docs before, job documents, and one of those is a resume. So here are some examples of how you can include a career break on your resume. We're not going to go over how to write your resume from start to finish. We do have a resume writing webinar, but this is how you can specifically add in your career break. And we know from hiring professionals, when they are surveyed, they are more likely to interview a candidate who lists their career break on their resume than those who do not. We also encourage you to add your career break because what this allows you to do is control your career narrative. If you leave a blank space where you were not working and you just have your jobs on either side of your break, or your work history ends in 2015 and you've been on a break since then, the person or people that are looking at your documentation are going to make some assumptions or say, I wonder what this person's been doing for the last several years. By putting in a career break, you answer that for them. And you can see on the slide, you do not have to go into a ton of detail. You could say planned career break, an intentional pause to focus on full-time caregiving, excited and enthusiastic to return to work. If you were laid off, you can say one of multiple people laid off due to a change in company strategy, consistently received outstanding performance reviews. So you can see that on this screen, on this slide, there are a number of different ways that you can approach your career break on your resume. All right. So in your cover letter, since you'll be going back to work after a career break, I just want to give a little bit of information or really general good rules of thumb for cover letters. So a cover letter is not long. It's definitely a page or less, 250 to 500 words. You can mention your career break. You don't have to mention your career break on your cover letter and in your resume, but certainly one or the other. You want to certainly say that you're enthusiastic about returning to work and you are excited about working at the company. So it might sound something like this in the middle of your cover letter. With a career in customer service, including 7 years in a team lead role, I've done it all. Supervise and mentor staff, implement solutions to resolve complex customer issues, and train and develop new and experienced representatives. I stepped out of the workforce for 2 years to attend to some family matters, and I am ready to dive back into this field. As I've watched the field evolve, I'm especially energized by the changes I've witnessed because throughout my career, I've loved taking on the challenge of learning new things. Simple, straightforward, and to the point. You do not have to give a ton of details. You just have to mention it. All right. For interviews, as you start interviewing, there are several resources out there, and we'll include some in our recap where you can look at the most common interview questions are asked so that you can certainly formulate your answers and practice those. Chat GPT can also be helpful in interview preparation. But one thing that you do want to, kind of anticipate is that you might be asked a question about your career break or why you want to return to work. So make sure ahead of time that you are clear on your answers to this type of question or these types of questions. And one thing you may say is, I feel fortunate that I was able to step out of the workforce for a bit to spend time with my family. Now I'm excited and energized to return to my professional goals. I'm very passionate about, the job or the industry, and I'm looking forward to returning to work. Joining an organization like yours will allow me to make valuable contributions to your team and to help your clients achieve their goals as a result. You might also add something about some of the skills you developed when you were on your break. During my time out of the workforce, I led fundraising efforts for our local school PTO, raising X number of dollars for a new playground, that was much needed and now better serves the students in our community. So, thinking through those things can help you feel more prepared and more confident when you head into a job interview and when you talk about the time that you've had outside of the workforce. All right. Another consideration as you're relaunching yourself is personal branding. And while it is definitely an important part of the job search, especially for those of us that have a break and are returning to work, the degree to which you need to do personal branding or the activities that you do really depends on your industry. So, for example, if you are a content creator or in IT, it might be a good idea to have an online portfolio or a website that showcases your work and your projects. For other industries, being active on LinkedIn might be enough to establish yourself as a leader in your field. So on LinkedIn, you want to be active and post, comment, like, and engage with others on these platforms so you can become more visible to more people. All of the algorithms behind the scenes on a platform like LinkedIn will sort of shape what content you see and who sees your content. So your activity is going to lead to more views and greater reach. And so, again, this is also ties into networking. So you want part of that to work into or weave into your networking plan. All right. For job searching, there are really there are many different ways to locate jobs you might want to apply for, and also really just reading the descriptions for information as part of your research and discovery process. One thing we recommend is to use advanced search functions so that you can filter for the type of job you want. So, for example, you might want part-time, remote, or you might want full-time hybrid. And also, when you use an advanced search, I think that it's important to know you don't just have to search for job titles. You can scope different job titles, and you'll probably discover some, variations in job titles since you were in the workforce. But searching using your key skills or strengths that you want to leverage in your next role really can yield some great results that you might otherwise miss if you solely focus on those job titles. So a couple things that you want to do that I put an example here of our search bar on FlexJobs, and I typed in project coordination plus organization. So if these are two key skills for you that you want in your next job, but you don't necessarily need the job title project coordinator, this will search all of the jobs on our site that have project coordination and organization in the job posting or as part of the title. Then from there, what you can do is put in your location and also these different filters so that you can really make your search as laser focused as possible. So if you want to work remote or depending on what level, if you want to be an employee or find contract work, if you don't want to travel, you also can look at the career categories that we have. So you could narrow it down by industry as well. All right, so let's think about when we start this process, it's important to be comfortable leaning in for support through those around us, because as we talked about earlier, this could be a months long process as you are returning to work. And sometimes, it just gets really tricky in the job search process. Our confidence can take hits throughout the process, right? We apply for jobs, we might not hear back from employers, and we wonder why. And we start to think it's something that we did. And that is not, in fact, the case. So it's important as you are working through this process to give yourself grace. If it's been several years since you've worked, know that a lot has changed, and it's likely that the way you apply to jobs has changed as well. You've heard me mention, tailoring your resume and cover letter each time, and maybe you didn't do that before. So just know that it's going to take some getting used to. So you want to celebrate each step you take along the way and each step in the process that gets you closer to your end goal. Confidence boosting activities, it's going to be different for everybody, but certain things like upskilling, attending seminars or webinars like this can be very beneficial for keeping you in the mindset that you are doing what you need to do to get to your end goal. A couple other things that I think are really important is to start or end, or at least at some point in a day, have a gratitude practice where you write down something that went really well or something that you think that you are really grateful for. That really can help with mindset. I used to, and I don't know how it changed, it got turned off, but I used to have an alarm go off at 5:30 p.m. every day. That used when my kids were younger, that was a hard time of day. And so when it would go off, it just said be grateful, and I would pause for a second as I was turning the alarm off, the reminder, and think of something that I was grateful for that day. And it really, really was a really great thing. I did that for years, and I'm gonna reattack that. Also, start each day with a positive message to yourself, kind of manifest that. And if you're going to write your goal down every day like we talked about earlier and post it somewhere different, that is you manifesting your goal. So make sure that you commit to doing that. Your mindset is really important here, and it's something that you are going to need to exercise each day in a process like this. All right. So what do you do? Where do you go now, and how can you make sure that this works? So first, take some time in step 1, brainstorm, assess, and reflect. This is really important. Sometimes we want to just jump right in and start looking at jobs and applying to jobs, but that's not the best place to start when you start a job search in general and when you are relaunching your career, because you also need to sort of get familiar with and set goals and write out an action plan for how you're going to find this job. And so it's really important to spend some time reflecting. Once you go through the reflection period and you set some goals, you're going to update your job documents and your social profiles so that you have everything in order as you go forward. And as we talked about, the networking component of this is really important as well. So make sure you spend some time planning your networking activities and your networking strategy so that you can go back and do that. All right. Before we get into the questions, as promised, I want to just remind everybody we will be emailing you a link to this recording with additional resources. If you have any questions about any other part of your job search, please check out the flexjobs.com blog. There's so much information on every job search topic you could imagine. We also, on this team, have many other webinars that we hope you'll take some time to attend. And as we go forward, let's go ahead and see what questions we have there. So remember, add those questions to the Q&A section. Hey, everybody, it's Tony. I am the lead career expert here at FlexJobs. So if you are new and haven't been to a webinar and this is your first one, thanks for being here today. We'll get through as many questions as we can with the time we have left. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Ageism is a prevalent issue when attempting to rejoin the workforce. What is the best way to, excuse me, convince a potential employer resume, cover letter, interview that my experience, both work and personal, would benefit their company? So a couple ideas here. And first, I'll just say that we have a lot of resources on ageism and a lot of webinars that we've done as well. So I would check our events and certainly sign up for those ageism webinars where we go through in much more detail than I'll be able to do today. But it's really important that when you are applying to a job, regardless of your age, you are focusing on the skills that you have that are relevant to the role. In terms of ageism, if you have 20, 30, 40 years of experience and the job that you are applying for only needs 5 years of experience, don't lead with the number of years of experience you have, right? That's going to tell an employer that you are far overqualified, that you won't be there very long. It might spark some, unconscious bias towards ageism in their mind. So you really want to concentrate on the skills and what you can offer the organization in your cover letter. I think one of the things that you can talk about is, let's say you were a marketing manager, marketing executive, and you had a team of people and you're applying to do a marketing role that's more in the day-to-day activity of marketing. So in your cover letter, you might say, at this point in my career, I'm really looking forward to working where I'm really passionate, which is delivering engaging marketing content to an audience. right? So you're already setting the stage that you know that the job that you are applying for is, a different career level than where you were before. So when that person looks at your resume, they'll already know that you've processed this and thought about that. All right. And so those are the things that you want to do and share in order to benefit the company. How should you network for remote work? Great question. I think probably the best and most well known platform is LinkedIn. So I would definitely start there. That's going to be sort of where you get the most bang for your buck, if you will. And I would make sure that you have a profile on LinkedIn that is set up. We have lots of resources on LinkedIn as well, but also that you are gearing your profile towards the job you are looking for, and you are using and highlighting those specific keywords. In the presentation, we talked a little bit about where you can concentrate if you don't have a LinkedIn profile already, or if you sort of need to update yours. And that would be the headline, which is underneath your name on your LinkedIn profile. The about section, which there are, I think it's 2,500 or it's over 2,000 characters there. So you can do a good bit of sort of explaining in that section. And then your skills section. The skills section is really the most important when people are using LinkedIn Recruiter to find candidates for their roles. They're going to use keywords and search based on people that meet those keywords that they are putting into the search criteria. And those keywords are filtered or come from people's skills section on LinkedIn. So that's where you want to concentrate. And then once you have your profile sort of set up, then you want to be engaged and active on the platform, reaching out to people from your former network, maybe joining some groups. FlexJobs has a remote work group with, I think, 68,000 people in it, but any group that you can join, all of those people already have something in common with you, so you can start building your network fairly easily when you join some groups on LinkedIn. Commenting on people's posts, liking people's posts, following companies that you are interested in working for. Those are some things that will help you be more visible and start your networking efforts strong. All right. I'm not sure how transparent I should be during interviews when explaining my breaks, especially when they are more unconventional. I value honesty, but I also understand there should be some professionalism, which is the gray area for me. Are there resources or answers to help with this? So I think when talking about your break, and I'm not sure, there's a number of different reasons that people have breaks. You do want to be honest if your break was because you were let go. You definitely want to be honest about that. If it was for health reasons, if the health issue that you have is maybe not resolved and would impact your ability to meet the objectives of the job, you probably need to go a little bit more in depth. But otherwise, you might just say, when I finished my last job, I was really looking forward to having some time away to spend doing some self-development projects and spending time with my family. And I have really taken that time as an opportunity. And now I'm excited to get back to work. And so you just always want to be forward thinking and bring it back to the conversation about the job you are interviewing for. So you don't really want to dwell on the reasons for your break or go into a lot of detail. You can just, be very brief and move forward from there. What if you haven't worked in a while and you don't have any professional references, only personal? A couple of things here. So, back to the LinkedIn conversation, you also can get recommendations on LinkedIn. So, I would ask some of those personal references to maybe fill out a recommendation for you on LinkedIn, because then that's going to sort of boost your current recommendations on that platform anyway. So that's one thing I would do. If depending on the references that you have from your previous jobs, if you have kept in touch with them vaguely, or if you have contact information from them and you think they would be a good reference and you need them, you could still reach out to them, certainly. But also think about maybe if you did any volunteering or are a member of any sort of other organization, or you have a kiddo who's in Girl Scouts or something like that, and you were active, in the troop or with the school's PTO, you might be able to get some additional references there. So those are some things that you can think through. Certainly, I would lean into your personal references that you have, and maybe ask them to, kind of take that step and write a recommendation for you on LinkedIn. All right, let's see the next question. What if I don't know exactly what I want to do? What do you think about contract work as a way to get my foot in the door of a good company as a way around this? So I think contract work, freelance work, gig work, volunteer work, especially if you've had a lengthy um well, I guess it doesn't matter how long your break has been because you might want to do a career change anyway. So I think that these are good, solid options for you, and also, in the meantime, what happens is you start to earn some income again. And so that can be a really nice win for two different reasons. Contract work, freelance work is really good for a couple of reasons as well. It lets you try something new. And if you are in a position where you're not entirely sure what you want to do, but you are thinking about dabbling in something or trying to expand your skill set, this can be a really great way to get some experience under your belt. I haven't worked in a while and it's been years since I've interviewed. Can you recommend ways to relieve my jitters about getting back out there? Yeah, this is a great question and certainly understandable. Please know that when you are invited for an interview, you are already one of the top candidates. You are already somebody that they would like to hire or are very strongly considering hiring, and the interview is really confirmation of that. Of course, one person's probably it's just a job for one person, right? So there's other people still in the running too, but it's very few once you get to the interview stage. So that in and of itself should help you reframe, or kind of cancel out some of those self-doubt feelings because you're in the final stages already. So let that help you be confident in the abilities and the strengths that you have to offer this organization. Practice ahead of time. If you are doing a Zoom interview, for instance, maybe set up a mock interview with somebody in your family or a friend that you can go through Zoom and they can ask you some of the most common interview questions so you can answer them on camera on a computer if it's not been something you've done before, so that you can just sort of get a feel for what that looks like and where you should look on your computer and all of that, because that's also going to help you feel more comfortable and confident on the day of the actual interview, because that's just another layer of things when you're doing a remote interview. I think too, if you are sort of practicing and preparing ahead of time and maybe writing out your answers and then, stating them out loud so you can sort of edit them, you're not going to read these during the interview, right? That's not the intent, but the intent is to get your thoughts on paper and really hear what that sounds like when somebody asks you a question about, you know, tell me about a time when, or something like that. So, those are some things that you can think about and do to prepare. I think that confidence is key. If you are invited for an interview, they like you already. And so and practice makes perfect. Now well, I shouldn't say perfect, but practicing makes things all the more comfortable. It's likely in this market that you might have multiple different job interviews before you get a job offer. That's not true for everybody, but it is true for a lot of people. And so celebrate getting the interview, having the interview, even if you don't get offered the job, because it is getting you closer to your ultimate goal, which is to land a job. What if I do not have a portfolio and work samples since my last job was a long time ago? How do I approach job applications where they ask for samples? I would probably create some on your own then, because if you are applying for jobs that require samples, then you definitely want to send them with your application. And so I would work as part of my action plan on creating some samples to start getting a portfolio put together so you can be a more competitive applicant for these roles. After 20 years in a field, I was laid off. At 66 years old, the biggest problem I am running into is when in an interview, the question of where you see yourself in 5 years. I am still in good health and want to work, but when I am honest with the employer, I think that this kills any chance I have. but I do not want to lie to the employer. I have had several final interviews, and each time the person who got the job was much younger. Yeah, so this is in our ageism webinar on interviewing, we actually go through this question too. I think that yes, you want to be honest, but I also think that if you are saying something like, well, I don't want to be working in 5 years, and this is a job that the company invests a lot of time and training and effort into, then um, they'll take that into consideration when they make their decision on who they hire. So I would frame it in a way that says, I'm really excited about the opportunity to have, to join an organization again. I really am looking forward to working on a team and continuing to use my skill set for many years to come. I see myself always being active as a professional because I get so much joy, or I'm so passionate about what it is that we do or what you do here, or something like that. What if the break is due to something like mental or physical health? Yeah, you can just put planned career break and stepped out of the workforce to, spend. You could say spend time with family if you did that during your time, or you could say to have some time away out of the workforce for health and well being. Excited and energized to return to work, and of course, if during that time you did any skill building or upskilling, you can include that on your resume as well. How long does a career break need to be to warrant mentioning on a resume? Multiple years, 8 to 12 months. I think 6 months or more is a good rule of thumb to put on your resume. I think you could probably get away with 8 months as well. But certainly, if you are at a year mark and you don't have the career break on your resume, you definitely want to put it there. What do you recommend for relocation when the place is absolutely new, no connections, no network, no references, apart from applications to advertise jobs? I'm not sure I understand. Maybe you did relocate and you are trying to find a job where you are, without having a network there. I certainly think that even if you're looking for in-person jobs, you can still rely on LinkedIn for networking. Also, there are local meetups. You could Google like local meetups, the Chamber of Commerce, different things like that. So you could start getting out there and meeting people as well. Let's see. I think we have time for one more. Hi, I retired from the IT field 1.5 years ago. After relocating and living the retired life, I realized how much I missed working. I have been trying to find part-time work, 20 hours a week. Money doesn't really matter. I also need help identifying skills in demand and where get career advice. Okay. I guess for identifying skills, what I would do is think about when you were working, or, when you were at your most successful or your happiest at work, what were you doing? What do other people tell you you are really good at? Those are some, kind of exploratory questions that you might be able to spend some time on to see kind of what your skills are, or the skills that you'd like to leverage in your next role. And then what you can also do is search jobs based on those specific skills and see if you can't find some part time jobs that you would be able to do using that skill set, or part time jobs to apply to using that skill set. All right. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I hope this was helpful.